Okay, it looks like I am live. Okay, so hi everyone and welcome to my channel, Shooters Chronicles. Yes, I'm doing a live video randomly. And this is because I've kind of been a bit down recently, and as a result, I've been unable to like shoot videos like I would have loved to. I've not uploaded in like almost 2 weeks now, if not exactly 2 weeks, I believe. So I didn't want this week to go by without me, uploading another video or putting another video out there. So I was just like, you know what, I'm actually going to make this into a live video. And just upload that out there for my lovely and wonderful subscribers. So yeah, so today I'll be explaining like the various types of funding available to international students in the US. Of course, this might be applicable to some other countries as well. However, I would like to highlight that I will be majorly talking in the context of the US. So that's why I kind of put it out there. So, but I'll just be explaining different types of funding. And the reason why I'm doing this video is because a couple of people, like based on other videos I have done, I've kind of reached out to better understand like what funding entails. I'll be like, oh, funding in this school, for funding in this institution, and then they'll be like, okay, what exactly are the options available to me? Like, what's the difference between like scholarships and fellowships and assistantships and grants and funds? And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do a video to like better explain the various types of funding. So let's get started. So I would actually be talking about like I'll be starting out with scholarship. So I'll be talking about different types of funding, scholarships, assistantships, fellowships, grants, loans, um, and any other type of funding out there. However, I'll be starting with a scholarship. So, a scholarship is like a financial support awarded to a student based on academic achievement or other criteria that may include like financial need, right? But there are different types of scholarships, there are different criteria that scholarship may be awarded. And there are tons of international student scholarship out there for both undergraduate and graduate students. So, like scholarships can be full and partial as well. So, for example, you have some scholarships that cover like full tuition, you have some scholarships that cover partial tuition, some are full ride, meaning that they cover tuition, fees, room, and board. And this is mainly for like undergraduate students, right? When you see full ride scholarships, a lot of times those apply to like undergraduate students. And some will even cover like your traveling expenses and give you a stipend. So there are different amounts and different scholarship ranges. And in regards to like award criteria, there are various types of scholarships, and the most common being merit based, and then you also have like need based scholarships. And scholarships are typically awarded using like a variety of factors, including and not limited to like academic achievement. So, like scholarships for high achieving students based on like your grades, your transcript, and also like scholarships based on like community service and leadership experience. So maybe students with high history of like community involvement and leadership experience, right? And or maybe like scholarship based on your athletic prowess. So like you see sports scholarships, like even in the US there's some scholarships available based on sports. And some would probably be pertaining to like your identity. So what a particular identity you hold, if they consider that identity like an underrepresented or minoritized identity. And then you also have like financial need as well. So a scholarship could also be based on like financial need. So I always kind of advise people sometimes, like when you're applying for scholarships, like identify what that scholarship is based on. Is it like based on merit? Is it based on like financial need? What is it based on? And that way, if they ask you to write like an essay or a statement for that particular scholarship, right? You can tailor it towards that scholarship based on like the criteria of the scholarship. You kind of know what to highlight. Is it based on like leadership and community experience, or a combination of all those factors? So yeah, so those are kind of like various types of scholarship based on criteria, right? Remember, I talked about like full ride, full tuition scholarship, and even like partial scholarship. So those ones are like based on like the funding types. And then scholarships based on criteria, you have like what's it called, academic achievement, basically the main types, merit based and then need based scholarships. So yeah, that's typically like generally how it goes for scholarship, and scholarships can be for both undergraduate and graduate students. However, when you hear the term like full ride scholarship, a lot of times it's usually tailored towards undergraduate students. However, like there's still a lot of scholarship out there. Scholarships can be funded by private organizations, they can be funded by the institutions, they can be funded by your own government. So like when you're looking for scholarship, like don't just limit it to the institution or the school alone. Sometimes your own country can have scholarship available to sponsor you and fund your education to a different country, right? And then there are private organizations that like provide funding opportunities for what's it called? Like you see, there's this popular one that's like Mastercard Foundation scholarship. You see like Chevron and like a lot of scholarships out there that are just funded by organizations and not necessarily institutions. So just some general things like that. And one thing I would like to say is that you should never have to pay a fee to apply for a scholarship, right? Of course, you might need to pay to apply for admission to a particular institution, but 99.9% of the time, maybe there might be a 0.1% exception, but 99.9% of the time, you should never need to pay a fee to apply for a scholarship because like I mean, I'm yet to see a legit scholarship that will charge you a fee to apply for such scholarship. Even you might need to pay a fee to apply to the school, but you should not pay to apply for scholarships. So yeah, that's it about like just explaining what scholarship entails, right? So now, assistantship is the next one I'll talk about, right? Because I feel like sometimes we mix up scholarship and assistantship, and I'll kind of provide a distinction. So with scholarship, right, nobody would expect like service, like I mean, when I mean service, like nobody would expect you to work. But with assistantship, you're expected to work in exchange for that funding. So that's like the main decision. Of course, some scholarship might expect some like service involvement, like, oh, okay, you have to be an ambassador in exchange for this scholarship and all that, but they're not expecting you to actually work to earn that money that they are giving you. Do you understand? It's a scholarship. There's no like work commitment associated with it. However, with assistantship, right, there is a work commitment associated with it. So, like assistantships, popularly known as graduate assistantships in a lot of institutions out there, because a lot of times they're usually for graduate students, 99.9% of time, assistantships are for graduate students, provide funding for graduate students. And when I say graduate students, I mean like both masters and doctoral students in exchange for time spent working in a teaching, research, or administrative roles. So, like, in most institutions, there are like three main types of assistantships. You would have teaching assistantships, you would have research assistantships, and then you would have administrative assistantships. Some institutions may not have administrative assistantships like that, but a lot of times, from what I've seen, there are like three different types of assistantships. And a teaching assistantship is when you're expected to kind of like teach, in exchange for some type of funding, right? So maybe they'll pay your tuition, they'll provide you with a stipend and all that, but you're expected to kind of teach maybe like a lab class, an undergraduate course or something like that. And a research assistantship is when you're expected to do like research work, right? Probably you'll be attached to a particular faculty member just to do research work in line with that. And then you also have like administrative assistantship, which you would be expected to do some administrative work in exchange for the funding that your department or the institution is providing you. So those are like the three different types of assistantships. And sometimes when you get like teaching assistantship, sometimes it might be merged, like it could be like teaching research assistantship. So some institutions kind of just put it together. And some institutions, like, they just differentiate it, like, you're a teaching assistant, you're a research assistant, you're an administrative assistant. And the way it works, the application process kind of works differently for every, like, it differs by institution, sometimes it differs by department. Some schools, when you're submitting the application, they'll ask you, do you want to be considered for an assistantship, do you want to be considered for various types of funding and all that? And then you'll be like, yeah, I want to be considered for that. And some schools, they will tell you like you have to apply separately for it. Like you have to send this form, fill out this form, and send in your consideration for that. And some schools, you have to literally, of course, apply separately. However, you have to like write cover letters, submit your resume for these various positions. So like it kind of works differently depending on the institution. And Oh, hello, hi. I was not looking at the chart. Like, sorry. I was not looking at chat. I was like, oh, nobody's joining. And apparently it looks like there are people joining. So I wasn't looking at chat at all. But hello, Winnie. Hi. Hello, Mr. Nelson. And hi, Faith. Okay, you said perfect timing, you need clarity. So if you have any questions as I'm typing, I'll just be checking the chat. Like, looks like a couple of people are here. So if you have any questions as I'm talking, right? Maybe you want me to expatiate on a particular type of funding, just let me know and I will do that. Okay, so as I was saying, where was I? forgot where I stopped, but I was talking about the application process. Like it works differently. So when you identify a school you want to apply to, right? Check out what the process, if they have assistantship opportunities, right? Check out what the process is for application. Do they automatically consider you? Or do you need to apply separately? Like, do you need to contact the graduate coordinator to express interest? Do you need to fill out a particular form? And a lot of times you find that on their either on their website, on the department's website, on the graduate school website, depending on how it works, and on the institution's website. Like basically, sometimes it could be like on the graduate admissions website, and sometimes the department could have specific information about it. And sometimes departments post position that they expect you to apply to. For instance, I think recently I was looking like at was it Clemson University for one of my videos that I did, and I realized that there was in one particular department they posted about four different positions, and you are expected to apply separately for it. It wasn't like they'll just automatically consider you, but you're expected to actually apply separately for it. So I think that's something to just keep an eye out on and take note of that. And I think I said a question. Yes, it says so funding is basically for fall only. No, no. So funding is not basically for fall only, but this also depends on the institution, okay? Because some institutions they will tell you like you have to apply maybe every semester to renew your funding, and for the institution, and some institutions will tell you funding is for the entire academic year and it is renewable based on like satisfactory performance. So that satisfactory performance could mean that if you maintain a 3.4 GPA, 3.2 GPA, 3.0 GPA. So it really depends on the institution and also on the department as well. Sometimes funding, yeah, for both fall and spring semester, which will be the academic year, and sometimes it's like they'll tell you, oh, you have to renew it and all that. Yeah, but one thing I always say like is that there's more funding available when you apply for the fall semester compared to the spring semester. Of course, is there funding for spring semester? Yes, there might be. However, there are a lot of opportunities available, more opportunities available when you apply for the to come in to start school during the fall semester. Um, so yeah, I hope that's clear. Okay, so in case I communicate with the graduate coordinator frequently, does he or she have the power to give funding? I really cannot say if they have the power to give funding. I think everything ultimately depends on the structure of the school, of the department. I don't know what school you're talking about, so I really cannot even like be like, oh yes, they have power to give funding. Nah, I can't really say that. Sometimes, which actually is a great segue into like, I think the point I was going to talk about in terms of assistantship. So like uh the amount of funding you get from an assistantship like differs by institution, okay? Like some cover full, some would cover partial, and some may provide you with an hourly rate. Some cover tuition and fees in full, and you get a stipend if you work 20 hours a week. As an international student, you're unable to work beyond 20 hours a week, and a lot of times it's like 20 hours a week they'll tell you in exchange for this. And you need to be enrolled in a minimum number of credit hours for classes in a semester. And some would even cover like your health insurance, and some they may expect that you should pay like a certain fee or something. And while some they will cover like certain credit hours. So like when they don't cover full, I just regard it as partial. But when they cover full, I tell you like, oh, that's full. When it's kind of partial, like they cover certain credit hours, or some they will tell you that, oh, we're not covering your out of state fees, we're only paying in-state tuition for you. Like we're only covering like you're going to be paying in-state tuition, and we're covering the out-of-state portion and things like that. So you want to ensure that you know what you're getting into, right? And some will tell you, okay, we're just providing you an hourly rate, right? It's just like a student job. Even though they title it assistantship, but that assistantship is that they are providing you an hourly rate. Um, So that's how it works. So you want to ensure that you check very well whatever institution you're trying to apply to, you're trying to get funding at, you check real well to make sure that okay, I am going to be well funded if you need that full funding. And if it's like you're fine with partial funding, that's good for you as well. And with the way the the award varies by institution. It may be funded by your university, it may be funded by your department, it may be funded by your supervisor's research budget, or by an external funding body with like vested interest in a particular field of development. So funding could come from an array of sources, and that's why I said it ultimately depends on the school, it ultimately depends on the institution. So I can't really say, oh, one person has the power to give funding, because funding may come from a number of sources. Sometimes you see that faculty members will get grants, and from that grants, they're able to fund students, right, for that particular research. So I'm just going to go and check for some more questions. So any guide on PhD funding? Okay, that's one question. How can I get scholarship for my son who just graduated from high school and is looking for university in the US or Canada? So I okay, let me see if there's any other question I can add together. So can a student gain admission, pay partial, and work to pay for the rest, or show some funding, get there and work to pay for the fees? Okay, I will answer this soon. And then I also see like any tips on how to make your application for funding stand out, especially when many others are applying for the fall semester too. Alrighty, all great questions. Okay, and the reason why I read this question is just kind of have an idea of like, you know, how to respond. And I believe like this last question actually succinctly summarizes two of the other question, like so like basically I can use that to answer like the rest of the question. So any tips on how to make application for your for funding stand out, especially when many others are applying for the fall semester too? Yes. So I'll guide, and this also answers the guide on funding question. So my tip would be if you're trying to like make your application stand out, first of all, take a look at this at the requirement. So, what is their requirement? Every institution has its own requirement. Some may have some additional requirements, and some may just do the standard resume, personal statement, and all. While some may have additional requirements. So, I think the first thing I always tell people to do is like ensure that you clarify what the requirement is. Ensure that you take note if there's any additional requirements. Um, so for instance, now like maybe you checked the graduate admissions website and then they're like, okay, what you need for admission: resume, personal statements, 2 letters of recommendation. And then also outside of that, also check if your department has any other additional requirements, because sometimes departments may have requirements in terms of like, okay, we want you to address these particular questions on your personal statement, right? And if you don't take a look at that, you might not really know that, and then just do a generic personal statement. So always take a look at the requirements, and also like I always say like whatever you're applying for, okay, if you're applying for like a scholarship, take a look at it. What type of scholarship is it? Is it like, is it a need-based scholarship or is it merit-based scholarship? And if it's a merit-based scholarship, what type of like, you know, what are they looking for? They typically will tell you, okay, we're looking for somebody that meets this criteria. And if you meet those criteria, highlight it. And if they have particular essay prompts for those statements, you know, dot your i's, cross your t's, try to ensure that you do diligent research. Okay, avoid plagiarism. Yes, I said do diligent research to get like great, you know, to get ideas for that topic. However, don't plagiarize and lift from somebody else's personal statement that you see online. You know, just use that to make informed decision for you. So like I said, do your research, take a look at the requirements, right? If you need to connect with like for this will probably be for graduate students now. If you need to connect with like an advisor, if you need to connect with somebody like a graduate coordinator to introduce yourself, right? Do that. Depending on the school, some schools will specifically tell you we don't want you reaching out to a faculty member. So please take note, okay? That's why it's really important for you to check the website of the institution, take a look at their requirements, you know, take a look at their criteria. Do they have formatting requirements? Like, are they telling you, oh, your statements, you know, use Times New Roman to funds and all that. Like, ensure you check those requirements, because like a lot of people miss out on great things because they did not take their sweet time to read through and identify the requirements of the scholarships, of the funding opportunities. Some schools just don't care, you know. However, some schools do care about this. So please, please, I think that would be those would be my tips. Like, just take your sweet time to take a look at the requirements, and it will tell you everything you need to know, because all those websites, they typically have a lot of great information on there. And if your program is like research based and you need to highlight your research work, do that. If it is like service based that you need to highlight, okay, I've been involved in this organization, this is what I did for my community, highlight it. Okay. And if it's a mix of everything, highlight it as well. And also, one thing I would say is like, don't put yourself down, right? Sometimes we see like, oh, schools will be like, okay, you have to meet this 3 points, I guess 5 GPA out of a 4. And if you calculate your GPA and you don't get there, like, scroll down and see like, are there exceptions, right? Did they say like, okay, if you have like work experience of like 2 years, you can meet this? Or if like sometimes schools have all these exceptions, and sometimes they don't tell you must. They tell you our ideal students typically, or our students typically have this particular GPA, but that doesn't mean that they would not consider you if you don't have this, right? And I also encourage folks, if you have questions, if something is unclear to you, reach out to the school, let them clarify. Okay, a lot of times they have contact information on there, like reach out to them, let them clarify. So I hope that answers the question, right? On like various tips, because I really cannot say like, okay, this is like the definite tip that would work for you, because everything is just so different here in the US. Like, it's not like a lot of other countries where like it's just like, oh yeah, one step admission process. No, it's so different with every institution. So yeah. Okay, so and for the person looking for scholarships for their son who just graduated from high school, there's a video on my channel that talks about I think 25 full tuition and full ride scholarships for undergraduate students. So definitely check that out. And even the recent videos on like schools that provide scholarships and free application as well, I encourage you to check that out. Just to kind of take note, there are a lot of scholarships on there. You can check out those schools. They provide great funding, a lot of funding opportunities on there. And I know there's also like on Canada as well. I did one on schools in Canada as well. And all right, so I think there's also a question here on like, so can a student get admission, pay partial, and work to pay for the rest, or show some funding, get there, and work to pay for the fees? So a lot of times when you get admission, um, I'm guessing this is like admission without funding. Schools will expect you to show proof of funds. And with the proof of funds, they expect you to show the full proof of funds in form of like, okay, maybe through a bank account, like a bank statement, or if you have funding and your funding will cover that. But I'm guessing this question is more like, okay, if you don't get funding, um can you show some funding and get here and work to pay for the fees, if I'm interpreting that correctly? You would be expected to show proof of funds, emphasis on the proof of funds, like through like either if you don't have funding through a bank statement, or if you like, I don't know, because loans, people nowadays, people are able to get loan if they have a guarantor. um so you actually be expected to show that full amount of funds in an account or something if you don't have funding. And in terms of student jobs to pay for, I honestly don't think you can get a student job can pay your tuition here. Assistantship is different, right? Now we're talking about student jobs. Like, if you get here, you now look for a job as a student, you can use it to supplement your finances. However, the tuition here is kind of expensive. And if you're getting paid what, let's even imagine that you're lucky to find a student job on campus, because as an international student, you're restricted to working on campus. You find a student job on campus that would cover, that will pay you, let's say you're lucky, you get $14 per hour, right? That $14 per hour, work 20 hours a week, literally, like, that money will be gone in a short period of time, because they'll still take out taxes from it, right? And then you still have to, like, you buy food, maybe like transportation if you don't have a car and things like that, like, so that money, student jobs can actually only supplement your finances. That's my thought. I don't think a student job can pay your tuition in full now. And most campus offer many opportunities for part-time work on campus. Like you could work in a cafe, in like a student office. So you could work in a particular department or maybe like your housing department and just work as an office assistant. And they'll pay you a particular amount hourly. And or you can work in like a student union as maybe as an organizer, or like in an administrative role as a student tutor or advisor. Like writing centers have like all those like jobs, various jobs, even the library, like various offices on campus. So you can I think student jobs are easy to get depending on the school, right? If it's a large institution that has a lot of student jobs, yeah. But I personally don't think you get paid well enough for it to cover your tuition, if that makes sense. Okay, so I'm just going to move on to another question. Um, Hi, Mr. Kelvin. Hello. And Hani says that did the funding include accommodation too, or do you have to look for accommodation yourself in the US? So I'm not sure of what level you're asking this question for, but if it is a full ride scholarship, full ride scholarships for undergraduate students, they cover the accommodation, they cover housing. Yes, full ride scholarships for international students. That's why it's full ride. It's like it covers room and board, right? So room is like the housing part, and the board part is like the feeding part. But if it's a full tuition scholarship, it's just covers tuition. And even in some schools, you'll be expected to pay fees, like certain fees, like technological fees, like gym fees. I don't know, there's something they call it, not maybe not necessarily gym fees, but like there are different fees that they have here that you might need to pay. So it ultimately depends on the type of funding that you get. And if it's like for graduate admission as well, depending on your funding body, if it's like an external organization that is funding you and their funding includes a stipend that will help you supplement, like that will help you cover accommodation. So in that sense, accommodation is covered to an extent, right? But if it's like what's it called now? If it's like just general scholarship, that'll just say, oh, a general funding type, that'll just say like, okay, yeah, we're just covering your tuition, you have to figure out the rest on your own. Then no, it won't cover your accommodation. However, if you get stipend, right? If let's say you're getting a stipend of $18,000 per year, and that's still on the low side for some schools, like some schools pay as high as $30,000 per year for students in terms of stipend, like you would technically that would in some sense cover your accommodation. Because let's say you are in a place that maybe you rent a one-bedroom apartment for like what $800 per month, like you still have some money left and things like that. So to an extent, that would cover your accommodation. So I think it depends on how you look at it. So that's about, you will still be the one to look for your accommodation, right? But like you'll be getting stipend that you will now use to pay for the accommodation. Of course, you have to sort yourself for the first month, but after that, you should be like good to go. Okay, so I hope that answers the question. So I'm just going to explain another type of funding that I have a lot of questions about, which is financial aid. Okay. So actually I didn't know that people were going to join. So I just thought this video, I was just going to come online and just be like, oh yeah, and be done within 30 minutes. But it looks like I'm going over 30 minutes now, which is absolutely fine because I'm sure it's helping folks out there. So I'm going to talk about financial aid now. And one thing I would say is that, strictly speaking, right, financial aid through the Federal Student Aid Program, known as FAFSA, is reserved for US citizens and eligible non residents, right? But despite not being eligible for the federal financial aid, international students may be eligible for institutional or even state based aid based on what is available. So some financial aid are like need blind, so regardless of your ability to pay or not, and some are need based, which is based on your ability to pay. And one thing I would say is like for schools that offer financial aid, you may be required to complete something called the CSS profile. And this is usually for undergraduate students, okay? Like just to kind of clarify, this is usually for undergraduate students when we talk about financial aid. But for schools that offer financial aid, because not all schools offer such for international students, you may be required to cover something called to complete like the CSS profile, which is like a profile that that many private schools offer funding or I mean by schools, I mean colleges and universities. They use it to determine your eligibility for non-governmental financial aid, such as the institutions' grants, like their loans, like their scholarship. And this ESS profile, once you type it on Google, literally it will pop up, right? It's like an online application, like I explained, like it's maintained by the college board, I believe, yeah. And it collects like a lot of information, and it's used by almost like 400 colleges and scholarship to award non-federal like financial aid, just explained. Again, mainly it's for undergraduate students. And I think a lot of times you just need to complete, like, because they need to understand your financial situation in the context of your local economy, right? So they'll collect information about like your family income, assets, like expenses, like taxes and things like that. And you and your parents will be able to enter information in your home currency, and then they'll do the currency conversion for you. And of course, this depends on your institution's offering. So you should check with your like the institution's financial aid office or like the international admission office, depending on on how it is done, before filling out any forms. Like schools that do that, they will tell you fill out the CSS profile for financial aid. And yeah, and then okay, so I see um so in case there is no funding and international student still wants to attend, is there any advice or way he or she can attend school? Uh, if you don't have money and you still want to attend school here in the US, you need to find some ways to like get funding, right? And like I mentioned earlier, I think I talked about like the various types of scholarships that we have for in terms of like type, I was explaining types of funding. I talked about scholarships, I've talked about assistantship, now I've talked about like financial aid briefly, right? So there are various ways you can find funding. There's always funding out there. The question is, do you meet the criteria or not? That's just the question, right? Do you need the criteria or not? Right? Because I think the issue is not finding the funding. The issue is like people actually applying and they're meeting the criteria. That whole long process, right? There's a lot of money out there. There are organizations like my friend mentioned here, like she just said maybe share some information on grants. And grants is actually like my next fellowships and grants. Like those are part of the things I'm going to talk about next. And grants is like a quantity of money in terms of like financial assistance, like given by a government, organization, or person for a specific purpose, right? It could be subject based, it could be based on like your country of origin. It could be like this Fulbright, right? Fulbright is this popular one. There's this FLTA, like this Fulbright, I think, learning teaching assistant program that sometimes they bring like teachers of English to the US to teach like certain native language and all that, good stuff. So there are organizations out there, and I think I mentioned like the MasterCard earlier as well. And there's this one, I think it's like the Ashinaga is the Ashinaga Foundation as well. Like this one is for undergraduate students. If you are a student, like maybe you've lost one of your parents or you lost both your parents, you're eligible for a full funding of like a full scholarship from them, like if you meet their criteria, of course. So like there are a lot of other organizations out there that provide funding, right, if you meet their criteria. So I think the issue is just meeting those criteria. But there are a lot of funding out there, both partial, both full scholarships that school provide, that organizations provide, like private individuals, right? Some people are just like, they're just philanthropists and they're like, okay, I want to sponsor this person and all that. It's just out there. It's just like meeting those criteria, right? That I think a lot of people have issues with, because you might apply, you might not get in. You might apply, they might select other people. So, and Winnie, if you have any information about, scholarships and all that, other like government bodies that sponsor, please put it in the chats to help people out there. Thank you. And okay, says, please, can you use your your WAEC result and transcript to get funding opportunities? It depends on the school. I'm assuming this is for undergraduate admission. It ultimately depends on the school. Some schools literally just tell you, they don't ask at the undergraduate level, they don't even ask for an essay. They just tell you to upload your transcript and your WAEC. They'll tell you provide proof like scratch card and automatically you're considered if you meet, like, if based on your transcript, if you meet a certain GPA requirement. I think a school, I don't know if it's Kansas State University or University of Kansas. I might be mixing it up, but one of the two. Check it out. They have scholarship opportunities for undergraduate students. I'm not sure if it's Kansas State or University of Kansas right now that has the full tuition for undergraduates, but their application process is not stressful at all. And even Northern Arizona University, I know somebody that got partial funding there, and all they uploaded was their transcripts, right? Because the application is also not stressful. I don't know right now, but this was like 2 years ago, yeah. Um, submitted their transcript and just like the WAEC, and also like filled the online application form, and they got like partial funding, a partial scholarship. So yeah. Um, the next question is it possible to get funding for the whole duration of a PhD program in terms of assistantship? Yes, and if you've checked, I don't know if you've checked any of the videos I've done on maybe schools that provide this funding. A lot of times you say there that this funding is for the duration of your program, based on satisfactory performance, or based on you maintaining a certain GPA. So yes, you get funding for the whole duration of funding. I said for the whole duration of your PhD program, based on satisfactory performance. Because even for a lot of graduate programs, for you to remain in the program, they tell you need a 3.0 GPA to remain in the program. So it's just the same with the funding. Like, you have to meet this criteria. You have to be taking a number of credit hours per semester to remain eligible. So the criteria definitely would would differ by department, differ by institution. But yes, it is possible to get funding for the whole duration of your PhD program. And a lot of times the schools, they put it there, they tell you 5 years, 3 years, 4 years, depending on the length of your program. So yes. And we just said here that government funding can also be government specific. I have friends from Saudi Arabia that get full funding opportunities for their citizens to study in USA. Also Turkey, and I believe South Africa too. Yes. Yeah, definitely agree with the Saudi Arabian one, because I think like we even because I only went to the same school. So like we we definitely had people from like different countries who were studying on like full rights. They were covering their housing, they were giving them stipend just to study in the US. So it depends on the country. Once you type like scholarships for, that's how I just tell people like type based on like what you're looking for. Scholarships for students, maybe like scholarship for, I'm in Nigeria now, I could be like government scholarships for Nigerians to study in the US, or government scholarships for Nigerians to study in the UK. Like a lot of times there are always like organizations and things like that will pop up, even if it's not like government-based scholarships. But you can just simply type and be like, okay, graduate assistantship in chemistry, and so you will just see a bunch of opportunities pop up. No matter how broad that question is, it's just you taking your time to check through it. So Olajumoke said, is it possible to apply for funding slash scholarship when you get to school? Yes, it is possible after you get here for you to apply for scholarship opportunities and funding opportunities. A lot of schools sometimes, based on your GPA, maybe if you meet a certain criteria, they'll tell you, okay, this scholarship for students that meet this, if you apply, of course, that meet this GPA this semester, there are scholarships for continuing students. So it is possible. And sometimes some schools don't actually have funding for incoming students, but they have funding for like returning students. And they tell you when you get here and after the first semester, you're eligible to apply for funding. But those are a few schools. So it really depends, but it is possible, right, to apply for scholarship when you get here. Because I had one of my friends in grad school was they went an entire semester without an assistantship, right? But they were paying out of pocket because they were able to. But the second semester, they started an assistantship in the spring semester that paid their tuition and provided them with a stipend. And do I have any information on Northern Arizona University? I actually have a video on my channel on where I reviewed the institution back, I think sometime last year. I can't remember if it's last year or early this year. But yeah, there's a video on my channel that you can check out on Northern Arizona University. I know they have some assistantships for like graduate students that cover like provide good stipend actually and cover their tuition. And also for undergraduate students, I don't believe they have full scholarship for undergraduate students, but I know that they have partial. that will cover like a huge chunk of your scholarship. So yeah. Okay, so I feel like I don't want this to be excessively long to allow other people watching. But I'll just briefly talk about like the other types of funding I've not talked about. I think fellowship is another type, and in academic settings, when people say like fellowship, they generally refer to a monetary award given to a scholar to pay for the academic pursuit. And fellowships are usually merit-based scholarships, right? Fellowships, I kind of like to attribute them because everything that we say is there for some sort of scholarship, right? But it's always still good to distinguish the different types of funding. Um, Fellowships are usually merit-based, that scholarships that provide financial support for undergraduate or graduate study, research. It could be like maybe international travel, right? It could be like, so basically like they can be short and they can be long. And a lot of times when we say fellowships, we kind of automatically are associated to graduate fellowships and postdoctoral fellowships. But sometimes at the undergraduate level, there might also be fellowships. The reason why they are called fellowships is because you are in it together with a group of people. They say fellowship, at least that's how I interpret it, right? And they are designed to support like a range of activities in such as like research, like I mentioned earlier. Maybe if they want you to work on a particular issue, a community-based initiative, or a particular training, and that's why we see like postdoctoral fellowships, um, which give opportunities to like further explore a particular field of work. We see like graduate fellowships and they will have certain criteria. So fellowship is another thing to like be on the lookout for, because funding is not limited to just like scholarships and assistantships. Fellowships are like they are, some other type of is another type of funding that you can just be on the lookout for. So if you're searching for opportunities, don't just take your eye off fellowships. Of course, a lot of times you see like fellowships might be for like US citizens, permanent residents, but at the same time, there's still a lot of fellowships out there that international students are eligible for. Just put it in there, like fellowships for international students in the US, and you will see, I'm sorry, excuse me, have a code. And you will see results based on that. And then another is loan, right? I feel like I need to talk about loans. That is if you're capable. Okay. So loans are essentially borrowed money and funds you are expected to pay back. And there are many international private student loans out there that help you cover college costs as an international student. And most private loan lenders, like they might require that you apply for your loan with a co-signer who is a US citizen or a permanent resident or somebody who resides here in the US and all that good stuff. And the co-signer could be like a friend, a relative, your partner, or a credit-worthy individual who is willing to support you in the responsibility of taking on a student loan. And some, they just need like somebody, they don't necessarily need like a US citizen, but they just want somebody that they know that is true, sort of, I guess, has a lot of money, right? And is also trustworthy to co-sign for you. And the popular one I know is Empower. I don't really know how it works, but for some reason it seems to be popular amongst international students because a lot of people that I know have actually like taken loans out from Empower. They got approved and they actually got a student visa with that. I'm not really sure how that works, but loan is another funding type that you can actually like look into if you know that your field has the potential to earn you a lot of money. Okay, if you're in the tech field, like yeah, possible, you could get a high paying job. But I always tell people like be cautious while taking out loan. Ensure that you will be able to pay the loan back, right? And ensure that your field, like the field you're going into, or that you're able to get a job that would equip you, right, with the financial capability to repay back loan. But yeah, I think those are general types of funding. So like I think just to recap, I talked about scholarships and the various types of scholarships. Uh we talked about full ride scholarships, full tuition scholarships, and then partial scholarship, and then there are various award criterias for scholarship. You could have like athletic scholarship, merit scholarships that recognizes like your achievements, your transcripts. Excuse me, I'm about to cough real quick. Yep. Thank you. And you could have like leadership and community service scholarships, and then just some need-based scholarships as well. And scholarships can be sponsored by institution, a private body, so like an organization or the government of your country. I talked about assistantships, the various types of assistantship, teaching, research, and administrative assistantship, and how like the rate assistantship differs. Just because you hear assistantship does not mean it's fully funded, right? Because some schools would only provide an hourly rate, and some like cover full, and they will cover your tuition, provide you with a stipend, and also like um what's it called, even cover your health insurance and provide you conference money for conference, and some may only cover your tuition partially, only the out of state cost and all that. So something to keep an eye out on. Just because it's an assistantship does not mean like it is fully funded. And then you also have like fellowships, you have grants, you have what else? We have financial aid, and I talked about like CSS profile, which is usually used for like international students. Some schools may have their own. Um, but generally speaking, international students are not really eligible for FAFSA. However, the institution may be willing to like offer financial aid if you complete something called the CSS profile. And then I talked about the need blind plus full financial support. I think, oh, I don't think I talked about that, but I talked about like some financial aid and need blind. So regardless of your ability to pay or not, they offer you that. And some are need based on your ability to pay. And then I think I talked about loan as well. And I touched briefly on student jobs, and I mentioned that I don't believe that you can use a student job on a US college campus to pay your tuition, because they don't just pay you enough to cover that, and the tuition are usually a lot. So I think that's it, and I provided some tips. Like I mentioned, always just take a look at the requirements. It's really, really important. Just I cannot stress it out enough. Make the school's websites, make it your friend. Make your department's website. If they have a separate college or department website, make it your friend. Take a look at their requirements in details before you just go ahead. Like, do they automatically consider you for funding, or do you have to apply separately? And then based on their requirements, just apply. And I wish you the very best. Of course, like dot your i's, cross your t's. If they have certain formatting requirements that maybe like you must abide by a certain font or space format, take note of that as well. If Check the deadline, because some might have a separate deadline for funding to be considered for funding than the general admissions deadline, and some might not. They just consider you based on like what they have available. And yeah, I think those would just be the general tips. And don't like, how do I put it, like trust in your abilities, right? Don't put yourself down. Do ample research. Do not plagiarize. There are a lot of resources online. I encourage you to take advantage of it. There are a lot of videos on my channel as well, just talking about this. But this particular video was just for me to explain various types of funding. But I guess I digressed a bit based on questions. But that's absolutely fine. And yeah, does anybody have any question before I kind of like wrap up and end this live stream? Okay, do I know of any website that will help you get a business grant? You want to start your own business. So honestly, I don't know. How do I explain? Like, you have to provide a more specific question for me to kind of answer that. Although this video is specifically for those that are trying to go to school, I may be able to refer you to a source, like in which country are you trying to start a business, right? Once you search online and you're like, okay, business grants available in so country, you may able to find that out. But there are also like some foundations that provide grants. I think there's this one like Tony Elumelu Foundation, I believe. I feel like that's a popular one that I'm aware of, that provides like grants to like certain people, like certain businesses. And there's this like IMF, like World Bank. There's so many organizations out there that actually provide grants to like entrepreneurs out there, depending on what it is. And if it's like a social based like business, like you have like, even, how do I put it? When I like non-profit, like all this, if you help people and all that. I don't know why I'm blanking on what it is called for some weird reason. I'm blanking on it right now. Like they provide you some sort of funding to help you out. And actually, I'm going to, yeah, like social service, basically, like if you're trying to like, assist widowed women, or, orphans and things like that. Like you have, or what's it called? If you are trying to assist people in what's it called, like in war zones and things like that, that they provide you with a lot of funds and all that, like grants that you have to apply for. We have like USAID, so that's USAID, so USAID. We have like UNICEF for like children. You have like there's one other one that I'm blanking on right now. So but yeah, but I think once you go online, you get a lot of resource for that. And I'm actually going to just share a couple of scholarships that people can check out in like various countries. So one second, real quick. Let me just click on it. That you can check out. So I'll just list them, and you can check out the scholarship opportunities if you're trying to look for scholarships. And I know like there's this Uppsala. Let me just type it right here. University Global Program. Global Scholarship, but that's in Sweden. That you can check out. It is a full tuition scholarship, and the deadline is February 1. You have like there's this under wall scholarship. It is for people from Ethiopia, Ghana, Kenya, South Africa, Tunisia, and Uganda. It is under walls. Let me type it again in the chat. If you're from those countries, you can check it out. And then there's also this, what's it called? Like there's this, like I mentioned earlier, I mentioned Ashinaga. There's one in the UK, it's the Ashinaga Warwick Scholarship, basically for undergraduate students, fully funded. And when I say fully funded, I mean like literally they cover your tuition, like they provide you with a stipend, basically anything. Basically fully funded. You don't have to spend a dime. Of course, you might need to spend a bit of money, but like it's it's nothing much. And then if but okay, December has passed. I was going to say one. Then there's another one as well. Let me think of this scholarship. I forgot the name. Let me quickly type it out on my what's it called? That you can check out real quick, that I know it's open for undergraduate students, because I did a video recently and I shared some institutions in the US actually that have free applications and also provide funding opportunities. And I know like there's this I think this University of Geneva Excellence Masters Fellowship as well. The deadline is in March. University of Geneva. And I think they cover like, I forgot the amount. Is it like they are Swiss franc, a lot of money actually, or maybe not, maybe I'm mixing it up, but yeah, I think those are some scholarships that you can check out, that off the top of my head that I can literally think about right now. And you can check my channel for other scholarships. Is there any question before I kind of like wrap up? Oh yeah, and this what's it called, I think University of Calgary as well, they have a bunch of opportunities in Canada. University of Toronto, there's this Lester B. Pearson International Scholarship. I believe it opened November ending, for students seeking bachelor's degree as well. Yep. So any other question before I wrap up? Okay, let me see, because I can't really access much now, but let me see if I can go to my YouTube channel and see if I can just paste the link to the video for you right here. My channel. Okay. The Northern Arizona video. Where is it? Uh, Apparently I've done a lot of videos. I can't even find My older videos. Um, all right, Michigan Tech. Okay. Let's see, let's see, let's see. Let's see. Oh, while I'm still searching for that, okay, I found it. There are some schools in the US that like they are popular, like they're schools that I like in terms of funding. Like Boston University is one of them. I feel like they have a lot for PhD now. Boston University is one, and even for undergraduate students, I think Illinois Wesleyan University they offer funding. Okay, all right. That's the link to the video that I just put. Hopefully, you can click on it and to take you to the video. Illinois Wesleyan University is another institution. St. Louis University, I like that school because they also have funding opportunities. There's also Davidson College that I came across quite recently, and I was like, oh, this school, they seem to actually have a number of funding for international students. Like, I wasn't expecting that, and even like financial aid as well. And also, what other school am I blanking out on right now? And if Ivy League schools, they have a lot of money, and a lot of funding, a lot for like PhD students. And even master students, depending on the program as well. And also, there's also this, I think, which of the schools? As I mean, the school I went, they have funding opportunities. The stipend might not be that much, but still, they have funding opportunities, which was Kent State University. And then, what school am I blanking out on now? I can't really remember. I don't know why. There's one other school I like that in terms of funding. I know Yale, yes, definitely like lots of funding opportunities for PhD students. You can check out Baylor University as well for graduate student funding. And then yeah, that's what I can the Ohio State University now too as well. Like they also do have like funding opportunities um for students mostly at the graduate level. They do have some at the undergraduate one, also at the graduate level. But yeah, I encourage you to check out videos on my channel. Shared a lot of opportunities, a lot of funding opportunities. Yeah. So his stipend at Kent State for masters has increased to a minimum of $11,000, which is really great because when I was there for like some departments, it was quite low, but also they were covering housing for my department. So I understand that, yeah. But yeah, thanks for the support, Winnie girl. Thank you so much. I love you. Thanks for encouraging me because y'all, like, I was so down, like I mentioned, like I'm just recovering and I was like, yeah, let me just put something. I'll come on here and talk about types of funding because I've been guessing that question a lot. And just decided to do a random live video and it turned out to be great. So thanks for the support, everyone. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And you can check out my website, IE Chronicles. Let me actually copy and see for opportunities, for a bunch of scholarship opportunities. And also, you can check out my other social media. It's International Education Chronicles on Instagram, Facebook, and also on what's it called as well on LinkedIn. Yeah, so you can check it out to stay updated with a lot of opportunities that I post on there. And yeah, take care and be good. Bye.